What part of Duke will be the most challenging to Florida State on Saturday?
Trying to win first down. If you're going to run the ball at all in early downs, I think that you might struggle to do so. And then you're behind the chains and you allow Duke to play the game the way they want to play the game and get after the quarterback and perhaps mix up their coverages. And I think that this is also a weakness of Florida State in general. We're a weird team that relies an awful lot on explosive plays, and that includes the running game. We'll have a lot of, no gains, 2 yards, 3 yards, sort of average gains, and then all of a sudden break a big one. But it is a feast or famine kind of running game. You don't see a lot of consistency in it right now. That's an area of grave concern for me.
It's Duke's defensive front to that end. It's just they can set the tone. Their effort is through the roof. They're smart. They know what offenses are trying to do to them. They can do multiple things. I mean, there's a lot to love about that front, and it's more than just 4 dudes. That's the best part of them. The thing I'm least afraid of is their linebacker safety group in terms of coverage. They don't do very good up the middle of the field, which is interesting, and I think it's something that we can exploit more than Duke's previous opponents. But that front is really good. It's above average probably in skill, but it's excellent in terms of their acumen. They're very smart.
Thomas Smith theory. Well, that's not his name. Thomas Smith has a theory. He thinks Duke's defensive numbers are overrated. The best offense they played was Clemson, and that was with a not first-time OC, but a brand-new OC and a quarterback making a second start. I just don't buy their numbers.
Thomas Smith, it's a very good point. There will be a story on Warchant later tonight or tomorrow reflecting that because the offenses they have played, Clemson's the best offense they've played by far. And what do we think of the Clemson offense, Aslan? Yeah, very meh. So Clemson, I think, is 37th in the country in total offense and like 44th in yards per play. Meanwhile, Florida State is 8th in the country in yards per play and 7th in scoring. Notre Dame, I think, is the next best offense in terms of total yards. They're like, I think, 55th, 53rd. And then you drop down to like NC State is 98th. UConn is like 113. And who was the other team they played? And there was
Lafayette.
another one. No, there's another one too. Yeah, Lafayette was terrible too. But I feel like there's another one they played.
Northwestern, UConn.
Yeah, Northwestern. Northwestern and UConn are 2 of the 10 worst offenses in the country. NC State's the 98th best offense in the country. So, and I pointed this out, but that's a very good point. Like, I get why you wouldn't buy it. The one counter you have to that is, it's still, you still have to go out there and stop teams. And what they do very well is they don't give up busts. They don't just let you, look at the Clemson game, man. Clemson kind of moved the ball at will against them. You know how many first downs Clemson had in that game, Aslan?
20?
29.
29, wow.
That's a ton, but 7 points. Because Duke never gave them a big play. They never let Shipley get out for a 50-yard run or a 70-yard pass. And as the Clemson kept moving the ball down the field, they were bound to make a mistake, which they did. That's what this defense does. They don't give up the huge play, typically. They keep everything in front and kind of wait for you to make a mistake. So that's where the numbers hold weight, is that they still went out there in these games and gave up 7 points, 7 points, 7 points, 3 points, 14 points. The most points they've given up all year was 21 to Notre Dame, and they had given up 14 with 1 minute to go. And then Sam Hartman runs for 20 yards on 4th and 16. So they are a good defense, and they are disciplined. But they have not seen anything in the stratosphere of what they're going to see on Saturday night. They have not faced an offense remotely close to what they're going to see on Saturday night. That does not mean they can't stop it or at least slow it down by any means. They are a very good defense, and they're very well coached. But, yes, I do think you have to factor in the offenses they have played against to this point have been dreadful.
Mark writes, and we thank him as always, has Duke ever played in an environment that they'll face this Saturday? Like ever. They're used to wine, cheese, orchestra music. I think they will fold like a cheap lawn chair on Saturday night. Your thoughts? I think
it's a fair point for sure.
If they fold, it won't be because they're overwhelmed.
But I don't think they have ever faced it. To answer his question, I don't think they've ever faced an environment like they're going to see against a team like they're going to see.
Yeah, just because they haven't been in a position to play big games.
Well, in teams that are this good, like Florida State is, don't take Duke seriously. And their fan base doesn't take Duke seriously. Well, this fan base and this team is taking Duke seriously. It's a primetime game. It may be the marquee game of the home schedule, depending on what Miami ends up being. So they've never walked into an environment where people will actually boo them when they run onto the field. Duke never gets booed running onto the field.
What I would say, the reason, to counter, I guess, what you're saying though, Mark, is Duke's strength is defense. Well, the crowd's not going to be super loud when their defense is on the field. So you're not going to be able to affect them because they're going to want to be quiet because FSU's offense is on the field. And when Duke's offense is on the field, they'll be loud. They probably won't move the ball, but they may not move the ball a whole lot.
You say that, Ira. The students could start a wave.
They've been known to do it.
Just saying.
They have been known to do it. I'm going to go back to my old days of being on radio and shaming the student section. I got away from it because they got better.
Show up now.
They show up. They got better. They did a lot of great things. But
the Virginia Tech moment wasn't. I think they're going to show up. They'll be. Hopefully they'll stay after halftime because it'll be late on a Saturday night. But I think they'll be a very important piece of that game. The
one thing this is a compliment to Duke and why I don't. The other reason I don't think they'll fold, defense travels. I agree with you there. And then secondly, most teams take on the persona of their head coach. Elko's a tough guy. That's a tough team. That's how they hang their hat on being tough, being physical. That translates. I mean, they probably weren't going to move the ball excessively especially with a backup quarterback or an injured starter. To your point, so I don't think it's the crowd that'll see them fold. Although it'll be fun to watch. Toby writes, "My friends, if we don't turn the ball over, the FSU offense is as at least efficient as it has been. Is there any way for Duke to get to 17 points? Because I don't see it." According to,
are we just getting gambling prop questions now?
Yeah, I think,
or is that a race 2 question?
It's a good question though. If they don't somehow dominate special teams, or if you don't turn the ball over and give them points, it just seems like it's going to be hard for them to get around 20.
Although they do seem to be a team, NC State can tell you that they create those opportunities by forcing a lot of turnovers. I mean, they force a lot of turnovers.
They do, and they did it to get Clemson. I mean, the only way Clemson loses that game is the insane number of turnovers inside the
and if you look at the yardage against NC State, they didn't do much of anything. They threw the ball one time in the second half, but just NC State just collapsed and gave them the game. And that's what good defenses do. And that's
smother.
Michael Lee, our guy here, says, "Good evening, gentlemen. As always, thank you for the great content. Just renewed my Warchant subscription for another year."
There you go, Michael. Well done, Mr. Lee.
Appreciate you, man. Look forward to great content to come. Absolutely, there will be. Any idea on if mass rotation of players that we employ is helping longevity and health, or hurting lack of stats, or hurting recruiting? Okay, yeah, so the fact that they're doing mass rotations, is it helping recruiting by showing players that they're going to be taken care of and their bodies will be healthy, or is it hurting because they might not get the amount of reps, snaps, stats that they want?
I would lean heavily towards helping. I think when you go into homes, or if you're on the phone with someone, the kids that Florida State is now recruiting, their dream is to play in the NFL. They do not want to be chewed up and spit out playing 75 reps in college football for 3 straight years. That is a great selling point. Is look, we have one of the best defensive ends in the country. One of the best. And we play him 40 snaps. He is fresh at the end of the season. He's fresh at the end of the game. And he will be fresh for the combine. He'll be fresh for his rookie year. He'll be fresh, hopefully, for his second contract. I can't imagine. I mean, I guess there is a chance that you could be like, well, I don't want to go to a place where I'm only going to get 27 tackles in a season. But, if you're good enough, like Jared Verse isn't going to have incredible stats this year. He's going to get drafted in the first round. So I think that's who you point to is this coaching staff is not going to run you into the ground. They're going to recruit a lot of guys around you. You're all going to get to play, and you're all going to be fresh for your professional career. And also, you might get to play earlier than you would if you went to a school that just played 4 guys the whole game. It's harder to break into those rotations. But if you're playing 8 guys, it's easier to break into a rotation.
Instead, as Dylan asks, what do you attribute the periods of inefficiency on offense to?
A couple of things. I think the offensive line is fairly inconsistent and average, even at their best. And then I think Jordan's had moments where he's been inaccurate and could have kept drives alive, and some games where he didn't really feel like running. So, there's a couple things there, man, but I would start with the offensive line.
Yeah, so inconsistencies in the ground game, that's largely offensive line, a little bit of the running backs, but if you're doing a pie chart, 80-20 OL, probably.
Yeah, I would say that, but Jordan hasn't always made the right decision on those, by the way.
That hasn't helped at times, for sure.
Yeah.
It would help on a couple of explosives. There was another one last weekend where, looked like there was a choice to be made. But then there's also a video right now that you can check out once we're done with the interactive hour, the Dominic Robinson breakdown of Jordan Travis. And it's about a half an hour of him going through game clips and talking about, things that work and that don't work. And Jordan's inconsistencies is part of it. And I won't give it away, but one of his minor theories or establishing theories is that he's never had to be the elite pocket passing quarterback in his life. Like, that wasn't who he was in high school. He might have been a thrower, but these guys that are the Arch Mannings or even, Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, the guys who just got drafted, they're told from 10, 11 years old that they are going to be the guy and the reason. And then there are other quarterbacks who are told, you can help us win the game. You can manage the game. You can run. You can do these other things, but you don't have to be the guy. And Jordan is trying that ball cap on as the man for the first time. And he's only into 6 games in his career of having that, that pressure to make those kinds of throws and make those kinds of plays. So anyway, you can see the full breakdown, but D-Rob basically gets into the fact that he's still learning how to conduct himself within the course of a 60-minute game as the guy from all parts of the field. And I believe
that's accurate. Yeah, I believe that's accurate.